Hey, so I'm James. I'm a wellness coach at the University of Kansas Medical Center. And my coworkers know that I like to do some food prep on the weekends. So they asked me to shoot a little video the next time I did this. So I threw a roast into the crock pot about 7 hours ago. It's about a 3.5 pound roast, so it's almost done. So since that's getting pretty close, and that only took me like a few minutes, and so since that's getting pretty close to being done, I'm gonna toss a couple of bags. I'm taking it really easy this time. I'm doing canned goods and bagged veggies just to make it really fast and easy because I have a lot going on this weekend. So I'm gonna toss a few bags of frozen green beans with some salt and olive oil on a cookie sheet. Bake that for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to throw everything together in my little containers. So we'll be right back. So the green beans have been in the oven for about 15 minutes. I've checked them a few times. And now usually I'll buy fresh green beans. You know, you chop the ends off, you wash them, cut them up whatever length you want. I'll toss them with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and I'll throw those in the oven. And those end up, for me, coming out, a much better flavor, much better consistency, a texture, versus like the frozen green beans. But like I said earlier, I'm in a hurry today, so I'm just doing this fast and easy, making 15 meals and probably about an hour's worth of work. And the reason I do the frozen sometimes as opposed to canned, I usually don't do canned green beans, and it's because frozen green beans, there's 0 milligrams of sodium. So that's a wonderful thing. It's got 2 grams of fiber per serving, 2 grams of protein per serving. So great low calorie, healthy thing to toss in with your food mix. So today I'm throwing in my 15 containers. I'm throwing in a little bit of roast. I'm going today with corn and hominy. I was gonna go with hominy and beets. I didn't have any beets, so I'm throwing in corn, which for me is kind of unusual because corn and hominy is really similar. And then throwing in the green beans with that. Now, a lot of times when I'll do this, if I've got a little bit more time to spare, I'll do like a chili. I'll throw in chili, or I'll dice up, for me, I really like chicken thighs, so I'll dice up broccoli and cauliflower, a little bit of salt and pepper, a little bit of oil, throw that in the oven for 15 minutes, and then I'll dice up chicken thighs and throw that into containers, throw the veggies on top, freeze 80% of it, and I've got meals for 2 weeks. I usually do this either every week or every other week. I have done it sometimes before. I've gone 3 weeks without doing this. And it's just 1, 2, or 3 hours cooking on a Saturday or a Sunday for me. I'll usually make 15 containers. I throw 80% in the freezer. And after I've done that for, when I first started doing this, I noticed that I didn't use all the food. The next time I threw in containers, I threw in 15 more containers, didn't use all the food. And what I ended up with that I really, really liked and figured out along the way, which is always the way it goes with these things, you figure out things along the way, is that I had 3 different kinds of food in the freezer ready to go. So I really loved that variety. Okay, so I'm going to dice up the meat and throw it in the little containers. And then I've got, I was doing quick and easy, so I just threw in cans of hominy and corn. So I've thrown that into a colander to let that drain out. So I'll just spoon that onto the top of my my meat there, and then the green beans are almost done. I'll pull those out and then throw those on there. And I'll see you back here in a minute. All right, so I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I ended up with 10 containers. I pulled 15 out, so didn't use a few of them. Threw a couple in the dishwasher while the food was cooling off. So the meat got diced up really small, so it cooled off really quickly. So you only get about 4 hours of meat being in what's called the danger zone. When you get it up to a cooked temperature, for me it was in the crock pot. Depending on the kind of meat you have, that could be anywhere from, I think it's about 150 to 170. You want to look up specifically what temperature you need to get your meat up to for whatever you're cooking. So when that's done and it's cut up really small and it's thrown into these little containers, it cools off very quickly. So it's only in that danger zone for a little bit of time, which is really great because you build up less bacteria. So I've left the lids off, and it has all the moisture has kind of come out of it, all the steam's come out of it. So now I could go ahead and put the lids on, throw a few containers in the refrigerator, and then I would throw the rest in the freezer with the rest of my stockpile. And I would pull out a few from the freezer, a little bit of variety, some other kinds of food, to throw in the refrigerator the night before work, so I'm ready to go. So I usually will have one of these maybe for lunch. Not too often do I have it for dinner. I kind of save them for work. Sometimes I do have them at home. I make a lot of other things to kind of supplement my routine. I do a protein shake every day after my workout. There's no way that I would hit my protein goals if I didn't do a protein shake every single day. I just buy protein powder, I mix it with water, that way it doesn't need to be refrigerated, as opposed to mixing with milk. I can just throw it in my gym bag and take it with me for the day. Now I know food prepping is not for everyone. If you don't have the freezer space, something like this isn't going to work. If you've got, ice trays in there, a couple healthy frozen meals ready to go in there, you're not going to be able to throw a ton of stuff in the freezer. I get that. And then a lot of people, leftovers aren't their favorite. Now, if you're doing this every week and you're only pulling out a few different kinds each week, you can build up a pretty good stockpile in the freezer, and the variety wouldn't be as big of a deal. But some people have an aversion to leftovers, so I get that. And then some people don't mind cooking for 30 minutes on after work on a weeknight, and that's totally fine. There's no way I can do that. It may be there's going to be nights where I don't have the motivation, or maybe I don't have the time, or so doing this only when I want to on the weekend just works for me. It works perfect for me. The next thing I'm going to do, probably do this tomorrow, not today, is I'll dice up fruits and veggies, throw them in my 5-cup containers. It's recommended that all adults get 4.5 to 5 cups of fruits and veggies per day. That equals 6 to 11 servings per day. So this is an easy way for me to make sure that I get my variety of fruits and veggies. I'll usually throw in oranges, apples, carrots, broccoli into this. That's going to be good for 6 or 7 days. So I'll usually do 4 of these and have enough veggies prepped for 4 days. Now, if you're throwing other veggies in there that don't last 5 and 6 and 7 and even 10 days, like a carrot lasts 10 days. If you're throwing something in there like green peppers, when that's diced up, that's gonna last 2 to 3 days tops. So if you do green peppers in your fruit and veggie mix, you wanna keep those in 1 bowl or 2 bowls, and make sure you use those 2 bowls first. Now I didn't have to cook those green beans that I had today. I could have just thawed those out, let the water drain out in the colander, and throw those straight into my bowls. I did want to cook it with some salt, pepper, and olive oil just to kind of improve the texture, just for what I like personally. But that's not something that you need to do. So that is about everything. I'm going to go ahead and now that these have cooled off, they cooled off while I was doing the dishes real quick. Now that they have cooled off, it's safe for me to put these little floppy lids on, that if you don't wait till they cool off before you throw these little floppy lids on, you will ruin your lids. The reason I do these glass containers is that they freeze perfectly. I can reheat them. I never use a plate. I end up just using 1 bowl. It saves a ton of time, because so I only end up washing really 1 dish. I sometimes will do a couple different dishes at once. If I've got the oven going, I might do a meatloaf and some baked chicken at the same time, since the oven's going anyway. Or if I'm going to be in the kitchen doing all this anyway, I might cook 2 meals at the same time. And that really saves a ton of time. I won't have to do food prep for a week or 2 or even 3 weeks after that. I'll make maybe a stir fry with some chicken thighs and just my choice of veggies, along with the meatloaf, or spaghetti. Noodles freeze really well. I get that question a lot. Do noodles freeze well? They do. You just need to not cook them all the way, so that when you reheat them, they don't end up overcooked. Because when you reheat them, that's going to cook them a little more. So noodles, rice, things like that. You want to stop those when they're still pretty firm. But they freeze really well. There's a couple things that don't freeze well. I made a pate one time, like a little dip with beans and avocado. Avocado does not freeze well at all. When you reheat that, it's going to be brown and mushy. Anything with a cream sauce isn't going to freeze really well. It's going to come out kind of liquidy when you thaw it out. Turnips, radishes, things like that, they do not freeze well at all. But everything else, honestly, leafy greens don't freeze well. You can't really freeze lettuce. Cabbage, I've heard that you can't freeze it. I do. I'll cook cabbage and freeze that and reheat it. It's totally fine for me. I like it. Everything else, there's nothing else I can think of. I've heard people say mushrooms don't freeze well. I've never had any problem. They freeze really well. Everything else you want to make, it's gonna freeze well. It's great time saver if it's something that you like to do. I recommend just getting started. You're going to figure out your own tips and tricks along the way, what you do and don't like, what saves you time. I would start with something easy, like a recipe that you really like to make, that you know really well, and then also start small. Maybe just do 3, 4, or 5 containers at a time. So for me, this ends up supplementing my lunches. I'll usually do like oatmeal or yogurt for breakfast. I'll do one of these for lunch. And I'll have my 5 cups of fruits and veggies every day, and then my protein shake. And then honestly, that's almost a 2,000 calorie day for me. So by the time I'm home in the evening, I'm doing something really, really light, just a little snack, honestly, for dinner. So this is something that I find great value in, and I hope you do too.